Have you ever walked into a room in your house and felt, without being able to quite explain it, an almost physical urge to leave? A heaviness in the air that has nothing to do with visible mess, but that drains you just by being near it? Psychology has an explanation for this, and it runs deeper than it seems. Every object you keep carries, along with it, the energy of the moment it entered your life. And when you accumulate things that represent unresolved chapters, relationships that hurt, versions of yourself you're no longer, you're not just taking up physical space, you're keeping alive, inside your own home, a conversation that should have already ended. And the body feels this before the mind understands it. There's a reason people who live surrounded by excess, by things frozen in place, by memories never properly digested, feel a stagnation that seems to follow them into every area of life. Money doesn't flow, opportunities don't show up, motivation never comes back. And that's not a coincidence. Today I'm going to show you, according to psychology, why certain objects inside your house are quietly sabotaging your prosperity, and what detachment actually means, far beyond simply throwing things away. The first point environmental psychology raises is that the space you live in is a direct mirror of your internal psychological state. That's not a figure of speech. Studies on behavior and environment show that constant visual clutter raises cortisol levels, the stress hormone, even when a person isn't consciously paying attention to that mess. In other words, your brain is processing that excess the entire time, spending mental energy that should be available for creating, deciding, acting. That's why so many people feel a tiredness that doesn't match their actual routine. It's not laziness. It's the brain working in the background, constantly trying to mentally organize an environment that never actually gets organized. The second point, and maybe the hardest one to face, is that most people hold on to objects not for their practical value, but for the emotional meaning attached to them, even when that meaning rotted away a long time ago. That piece of clothing from a relationship that ended badly. That gift from someone who's no longer part of your life. That broken object you've been promising to fix for 3 years but never do, because deep down it represents an abandoned project, a version of yourself that gave up halfway through. Each of these items works like a psychological anchor, tying you to a story that should have already become the past, but that stays physically present every single day inside your own home. The third point is that there's a huge difference between keeping something out of love and keeping something out of fear. Keeping something out of love means holding on to what still serves a real purpose in your life, what nourishes you, what represents who you are right now, today. Keeping something out of fear is different. It's accumulating because you're terrified of regret, because you think maybe you'll need it someday, because it feels wasteful to throw away something that cost money or that someone gave you with love. And that fear, quietly, keeps filling your house with things that serve no purpose beyond taking up space and draining your mental energy every single day, without you even realizing it. The fourth point is about how this directly affects your relationship with money and prosperity. Behavioral psychology shows that disorganized environments make decision-making harder because the brain, overloaded with unnecessary visual stimuli, ends up in an almost permanent state of decision fatigue. And prosperity, at the end of the day, is built from decisions: deciding to invest, deciding to cut an expense, deciding to change strategy, deciding to act instead of procrastinating. If your brain is already spending energy just dealing with the visual excess of your own house, there's very little mental bandwidth left over for smart financial decisions. This isn't about superstition, it's about available cognitive capacity. The fifth point is that objects tied to specific failures carry a particularly heavy psychological weight. That equipment from a business that didn't work out. That material from a course you never finished. That diploma from a career you abandoned and buried under shame. Every time your eyes pass over these objects, even briefly, even without consciously stopping to think about them, your brain reactivates for a split second the feeling of failure attached to that thing. And that's how, day after day, a house full of unresolved memories slowly chips away at the self-confidence of the person living in it, without them even realizing where that constant discouragement is coming from. The sixth point involves the clothes you keep but never wear. There's an interesting body of research showing that most people repeatedly wear only a small fraction of their actual wardrobe, while the rest just sits there, taking up space, creating that daily feeling of, I have nothing to wear, even while surrounded by clothes. And this isn't about fashion, it's about identity. Clothes from a body that no longer exists, from a phase that's already passed, from a version of yourself you're unconsciously still trying to reach, or still mourning. Keeping those pieces in the closet means keeping every single day a silent reminder for comparison, and constant comparison is one of the most efficient fuels for chronic dissatisfaction. The seventh, and maybe the most delicate of all, are the gifts you received out of obligation, not out of real affection. That object you keep only because it was a gift, even though you don't like it, even though you never use it, just because it feels rude to get rid of it. And every time you open that closet and see that object sitting there, there's a small internal dissonance between what you actually feel and what you think you're supposed to feel. Keeping a house full of things chosen by other people, not by you, is a subtle way of no longer fully inhabiting your own space, of living, even inside your own home, a little bit according to other people's expectations. Now, here's something important to understand. Detachment doesn't mean impulsively throwing everything away or turning into a radical minimalist overnight. Real detachment is a conscious process, and there are practical steps that actually work. The first is to tackle one room at a time, never the whole house at once, because too much decision-making at once creates paralysis, and it's exactly that paralysis that's kept everything packed away exactly as it is for years. The second is, for every object, to ask yourself honestly, does this serve me today, or am I just afraid to let it go? If the answer is fear, that's a sign this object has already played its role in your life, and now it's just taking up space that could be used for something new. The third step is to create a simple rule for clothes and objects that have sat unused for over a year. Either they leave the house, or they come out of the box and actually become part of your day-to-day life again. No dusty middle ground buried at the back of the closet. And the fourth step, maybe the most important one, is to gradually replace objects tied to painful chapters with objects that represent the life you're building now, because the space you live in every day quietly shapes the energy you bring to every morning. There's also an eighth element almost nobody connects to detachment, but that weighs more than it seems. The digital clutter piling up, which takes up mental space even without taking up physical space. Thousands of disorganized photos, apps you never use, old conversations kept only because deleting them feels hard, unread emails silently piling up. Cognitive psychology calls this invisible load because even without consciously noticing it, your brain registers the existence of all that mess every time you open your phone, creating a subtle, constant feeling of always being behind, always owing yourself something. And prosperity depends on this too, on the feeling of being in control instead of being swallowed by an excess that never ends, whether it's physical or digital. Prosperity isn't just about how much comes into your bank account. It's about how much mental clarity you have available to act, decide, and create. And a house full of unresolved past quietly steals exactly that clarity every single day without making a sound. When you start letting go of what no longer serves you, you're not just organizing a physical space, you're literally making room inside yourself for what's still on its way. And that applies just as much to a messy drawer as it does to an overflowing photo gallery, just as much to a stuffed closet as to an inbox full of messages you never replied to. If this video made sense to you, write this sentence down in the comments. I let go of what no longer serves me, so I can make room for what's coming. And if you want to keep learning about psychology, behavior, and how your environment shapes your life, consider subscribing to the channel because we're going to keep this conversation going right here. Thanks for watching all the way through, and see you in the next video. And remember, The space you clean today is the space your next chapter is going to need in order to exist.